Record. Okay, this is Reverend Trina Segna, and today our guest is Mrs. Juanita Broddrick, and she is coming on our show today to tell her story. Hello, Mrs. Brodrick. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. I hope you're doing fine, too.
I am, and thank you for being here. I know this is a very tough topic, so we are very honored to have you on here. And we will,
Thank you.
You feel free to talk about whatever questions I ask, and as long as you want, whatever detail you want to give. And at the end of the interview, I'm going to ask you if there's anything you want to add, and please feel free to do so, okay?
Sure.
All right. Well, Mrs. Brodrick, we are in a very tense political season, and I imagine this is difficult for you to talk about, both for the reasons of the subject and also because we're in such a hard political environment right now.
Oh, that's true, Trina. It's probably the most severe political climate that I've experienced since I went to the second debate with President Trump.
Yes, you were there. I remember that.
Yes. Well, what has brought me back out into the public eye at this time is because I exhibit the double standard that the Democrats are using now in relation to Christina Ford, who had very vague and sketchy allegations against a very absolutely respected and wonderful man. And I had allegations with so much credibility and proof of what had happened to me when Bill Clinton raped me on April the 25th. In fact, it was in the morning time on April the 25th, 1978. You know, the difference between Christine and myself is the evidence and the memory. You just don't forget something that severe that happens to you. You just don't forget it.
Right, you don't. And I've never said this on a recorded device. In fact, most of my family members do not know. Just my mom, really, as far as family goes. I know exactly what that's like because it happened to me. And you don't forget it. You absolutely do not forget it.
And you don't forget the slightest details either. You know, it's just something that stays with you. It's like a friend of mine said that had also gone through a very similar thing with Bill Clinton. She said, it's in your DNA. You know, you can't shake it, and it never goes away. And that's exactly the way I feel. You know, it just never goes away.
Well, most of the victims that I've talked to, and as far as myself goes as well, unfortunately, we couldn't shake it. We couldn't get rid of it. We couldn't forget it as much as we wanted to. And with all of this that's coming up now with Justice Kavanaugh now, it seems to have brought back so much to other victims, and it's almost feels like being victimized again because...
Well, yes, it does. And when someone comes forward with false allegations, now I'm not saying that Christine Ford didn't go through something, but it's very evident that there's no line that connects to Judge Kavanaugh. If she did go through something, then I feel like the Democrats persuaded her in her own mind that this was Judge Kavanaugh, and it was not. And we all know that now.
Right. And we also know that anybody that goes under hypnosis to recover memories, those memories are not credible at that point because you are easily influenced by what is going on, you know, in the present. And it's been proven that false memories are implanted through hypnosis. When now I was still a baby pretty much when you were attacked by Bill Clinton.
Well, most people were. I'm 75 now, but there's a few of us still around. You know, but it's mainly the millennials and younger people that have never heard my name. And now, many of them have, and many of them have expressed, regrets at not knowing and not being able to express sympathy at that time. And that's okay, and I understand that. But what we're going through now, Trina, is just such a revolution. Back when I was a little girl, and back when I was growing up, when anything like that happened, it was people would say, "Oh, men will be men, boys will be boys. Just deal with it." And that's what we had to contend with. And then nowadays, you see the pendulum swinging in a complete opposite direction, and you have men being falsely accused. And we've got to find a medium ground somewhere back in the middle.
Yes, I've got 2 brothers, a husband, sons, a father, and, because of this whole guilty until proven innocent or guilty without proof is dangerous. It's set a precedent for us that puts every man at risk, every man. And
I know.
I think is dangerous.
It is dangerous, and it's like, I don't know if you're on Twitter or if you saw the tweet that Senator Schumer put out about 3 weeks ago, and it was a hotline for people to call, and all he was trying to do was to get people in an uproar about Dr. Ford, and it really didn't work that well. But at the same time, there was this hotline number you could call if you've been sexually abused. And a mother replied to that, and she said, "Okay, Senator Schumer, I have a very wonderful son, a son that I'm devoted to. What number do I call if he's falsely accused of sexual assault?" And that's where we are now.
Yeah.
People are afraid, and they tell their sons, "Be careful, don't do anything out of the way." And the boys and the young men think, "My gosh, what's going on?" And they're frightened that they're going to be the next one.
Right. And I've got so many questions about your opinion on that, because it's this Me Too movement is something that has anytime there's a movement, there's a reaction that is way more than what's expected. Anytime. Look at President Trump, for instance. There was a movement, so, he was saying what was on so many Americans' minds. And he said this was a movement. And boy, the reaction just, was overwhelming that he won, because he was definitely a movement for Americans. But, and that was a good movement, but with every good movement, there comes bad movements. I think the Me Too movement, legitimate as it may be, it is being abused in so many ways, and that's scary.
Yes, it is. And Trina, you must, and most people realize now that the Me Too movement might have started out as a good thing, but the Me Too movement never has recognized conservative women. They wanted nothing to do with the Clinton victims. They want nothing to do with other conservative women who have been sexually assaulted or raped by Democrats, by the liberal men. And that's just the reality of it now.
The double standard.
The double standard extends to Me Too.
Right, exactly. And I think a lot of people are curious about this, but at the time that Bill attacked you, were you supported him before this attack? Am I correct?
Now right.
Okay.
I was a registered nurse, and I owned my own nursing home.
Which went number
at a very
one.
young age.
Which was number one in the state, I've read.
Right, it was. We got many awards. And at this time, I thought, well, my friends asked me to go to a volunteer meeting for his campaign, and I thought, that might be fun. I'll go do that. I've seen him on TV, and he looks like he's going to be a great governor. Well, I worked in his campaign for about 30 days, and then the campaign office called me one day and said, Mr. Clinton's going to be in your area. Can he come by and visit your nursing home on a campaign tour? And I was so excited, Trina.
Of course.
We were excited. We all had on, the day he came, we had on our Clinton for Governor buttons, and we were so excited, and the press was there. And the picture you see on the front of my book is the picture that was taken that very day that I met Bill Clinton. And after they took the picture, he comes over to me and he starts saying, wants to know about the nursing home, wants to know about me. And I take this opportunity to tell him about nursing homes and how we're struggling with the reimbursement rate and what we're being paid, that it just didn't cover the cost of care to adequately care for the senior citizens that we had. And he seemed very interested.
Yeah.
And so then he said, are you ever in Little Rock? And I said, oh, yes. In fact, I'll be there in about 3 weeks to a nursing home seminar. And he said, well, call my office. When you all get there, I told him I was bringing my nurse with me. And he said, and we'll get together and talk about this. So I was so excited. I worked for about 2 evenings getting graphs and everything done, information about the nursing homes, what it costs to take care of one patient versus what the state reimbursed us. And I was really excited to present this to him.
I imagine you were. I mean, who wouldn't be, excited, for something like that? I mean, that's...
Well, I was a businesswoman, and
right.
We were struggling. And
right.
Any help that we could get, I was certainly hoping that we could have gotten some help from him. But as we all know, it didn't end up that way. When my nurse and I got to Little Rock, the night before, we checked in our hotel. We had the same hotel room. And the next morning, when we got up, we called his office, and the young lady answered the phone and said, no, call this number. I call that number, and he answers the phone. I tell him, remind him who I am, and I told him, I said, we'll have an hour off for lunch. Can Ms. Rogers and I come over and let me bring this information to you? And that's when he said, I'm not going to be there today. He said, can I just come to your hotel now? And I thought, man, that's great. I'm not going to have to drive clear across Little Rock on a lunch break and not even have lunch. And so I told him yes. And he said, well, I'll just meet you down in the coffee shop, which is what the plan was supposed to be. So I turned to my nurse, Norma Rogers, and I said, you go on to the meeting, and as soon as I'm through in the coffee shop, I'll come right on to the meeting. So I wait in the room for him to get there and call and tell me that he's down at the coffee shop. Well, in a few minutes, he does call. But he says, it's so crowded down here, and there's reporters. He said, can we just have coffee and talk about this in your room? And, people say, well, why did you let him come to your room?
Because he's the governor.
No, he was the attorney general.
I meant the attorney general, right. And
he was the attorney general of
right.
the state. Of course, I was leery because I'd never been alone in a hotel room with a man I didn't know. But
right.
I trusted the situation.
Right.
And as we know, it turned out that isn't what he came to my room for. He came up there for a sexual rendezvous. And when I did not relent to his passes and his kisses and things and started pushing him away, that's when things took a very bad turn, pushed me on the bed, and that's when I was raped. And when I start screaming he starts biting on my upper lip and pressing me down on the bed, and it was the most horrifying event of my life. I could not believe that this was happening to me, and I can't even begin to talk about it. It was just horrible.
Yes.
And then after the rape, I am devastated. My lip is swollen 2 to 3 the normal size, 2 or 3 times the normal size. It's bleeding. I'm sitting up on the side of the bed, devastated and crying. And this monster has the gall to say to me, and he looks at me real bewildered, and he said, "Don't worry, I'm sterile. I had mumps when I was a child." And I thought right at that moment, you've just raped me. Why would you say that to me? I'm sitting here, a woman that's just been raped by the Attorney General of her state, and you say that to me, and that just made me cry that much more. And then, after he said that, he puts on his suit coat, puts on his sunglasses, and he walks to the door, and as he does, he motions to my mouth with his hand, and he says, "You'd better put some ice on that." As soon as he went out that door, I rushed to it, and I locked it. I was scared to death. I mean, scared. And I felt like somebody was going to come in and get rid of the body. That's what I felt like. I felt like a body.
I was going to ask you about when you didn't go to someone immediately. Well, you kind of did. Well, you did actually, because your friend found you. But were you scared to go to anybody because he was the Attorney General?
Oh yeah, people say, "Why didn't you go to the police?"
Right.
Bill Clinton was the police.
Right.
He was the top law enforcement officer in the state. Who was going to believe me? It was my hotel room, and I had let him come to my hotel room. There's no way in the world anyone would have believed me back then. Back in the 70s and 60s, you allow a man to come to your room, and if anything happens,
it's your
was
fault.
Your fault.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it's your fault. You should never have let that man come to your room.
But
That's
he
all
was
I would have heard.
Right, but
Right.
You certainly would expect a professional as the Attorney General. So, how did it feel to be betrayed by somebody that number one was the Attorney General and someone that you looked at as, okay, this guy might be a great governor, and that you were leaning towards supporting? I mean, the betrayal had to be just...
Yeah, it was. It was the most egregious betrayal that a woman can go through, trusting someone because they're in a position of power and think that they'll have the respect for you that you deserve, and then do that to you. My
Right.
goodness. Listen, I was in a shock for
Right.
a week. I mean, I could hardly navigate. It was about 3 days before my lip went down enough that I could cover it with makeup, so people wouldn't see the bruising. And it hurt me. It just hurt me down to my soul. I felt like a wounded animal.
Well, how, okay, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions in one. When your friend found you, what did you say to that friend? And what was your then husband, Mr. Hickey? What was his reaction, and what was your friend's reaction that found you? And
Oh my goodness. It was about 30 minutes after the rape. I had just gone back to the bed after I locked the door and just laid down. And I mean, I guess I was in shock.
yeah,
I can't, and I wasn't asleep, but I heard the knock at the door, and I thought, my first instinct was, oh my God, he's coming back, or he sent someone back. And when I looked through the little peephole, I saw it was her. I had completely forgotten about her. I'd forgotten about almost where I was, what day it was, what I was even in Little Rock for. I opened that door, and when she saw me in the condition that I was in, I mean, I started crying all over again. And we both went in and sat down on the end of the bed, and she said, "Your mouth," and so she immediately went to get ice for my mouth, and then she came back, and we sat there, and she said, "What happened?" And I told her everything. I mean, she was my close friend. She was not only my employee and my director of nursing at my nursing home, she was my friend. And thank God she was there. You know,
Right.
I think every day that I had somebody there to take care of me. And she said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "You know, we can't tell." And she said, I know. And I said, "Just take me home." So she drove me home. And I remember stopping 2 or 3 times for her to get out ice from my mouth. It was horrible.
My goodness. What was your then husband's reaction? And
I never told my first husband. I told him that my first husband was an alcoholic, and we were on the verge of divorce. We were separated, living in separate parts of the home we lived in with our son.
Okay.
And we divorced probably just 2 or 3 months after that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was very bad. So I knew that I could say nothing to him, and I told him that I went through a revolving door and it hit me in the mouth accidentally. But we rarely talked.
Right.
We rarely had anything to say each other because we'd filed for divorce. And so that was not anything that I could tell him.
So
he
you
would
were
have also blamed. He would have blamed me too.
Well, obviously you were already going through a trying time, and then for this to happen, that's...
Oh, yeah.
So, but you told a couple of people? Was it...
No, I told 5.
5,
When
okay.
we got home, I was so devastated. We drove to my friend's sister's home. She also worked for me. She was a registered nurse. And we told her because we wanted to try to get something, some more ice and something to say, something to say to my first husband, the one that I was about to get a divorce from. And we just wanted to, I just wanted to collect myself before I had to go home, because I had to go home and face my 9-year-old little boy and my husband that I was about to divorce. And so it was a horrible situation. It was just, and I remember my son, laughing about, "Oh, Mom, you hit a revolving door." I mean, I couldn't think. Of
Right.
course, I told him when he was older.
Right.
When it really happened. But my first husband, I never told. We hardly spoke.
Well, the 5 people that you told, I mean, I could imagine, but I still want to ask, when you told them who did it, what was their reaction?
Oh, just disbelief. But they knew I was telling the truth. They knew that I would never lie about something like that. And they saw me in the condition that I was, my mouth and everything. All 5 of the people that I told, including the lady that found me, Norma, they all saw me within a day or two in the condition that I was in. And listen, I was like a wounded soul. I mean, I walked around like a zombie, for days.
Yes.
So you couldn't doubt that there wasn't something wrong.
Exactly. I mean, that's one of the most horrible things that a woman will go through, and it's, very awful thing.
Yeah. And done by someone you trusted.
Right. And like you said, the top law enforcement of your state, so you were really between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, exactly.
You went public on this, I think it was on Dateline for the first time. Was that...
Well, no, my name was brought out Trina, I would never have come out. I was too frightened of those people. They gained power by the year here in Arkansas and around everywhere.
Right.
They were a powerful couple. And I would never have come forward. I had tried to live with this and put it behind me and run a very good business, and even after that time, opened up a handicap facility for severely retarded and handicapped children, and that was in the mid to late 80s. So I had my hands full, and it's good that I did.
Right.
People say, "How did you become so successful carrying that burden?" Well, it was in spite of it.
Right.
In order to forget, I worked myself to death day and night. At work was more healing for me than anything, because I was helping other people in my nursing home and in my children's facility. It did me more good than you can imagine, being able to help others and to try to forget.
Yeah, I would say that what helping people, that would be the way to try to cope. Was it one of the 5 that you told someone, you think?
Well, that's what I don't know. The 5 people that I told, at the time I was going through the separation and about to be divorced from my first husband, I was having an affair with my second husband. My first husband was an alcoholic and very abusive verbally. He never hit me or anything like that until I moved away from him. But I was already in a relationship. I even had to admit that on Dateline NBC because I thought it was necessary for people to know that I was being honest about
Right.
my life.
Right.
So that was a necessary part of it. And I told him, and then Norma Rogers and her sister, Jean Darden, and then I told Katie Krigler. She was my roommate in nurses training and also worked for me. And then there was another lady that I told. Her name was Lou Ma, M.A. She was a registered nurse, and she was one that was in nurse training with me. And then the other lady that I told her name was Susan Lewis, but at the time it was Sue Beckham, and I was the godmother of her children. Her 3 children were my godchildren. So we were together quite a lot, and that was the only ones I told. It was people that I was close to, that knew me, that could see my injuries in the beginning, and then have to help me get through this.
The man that you were seeing at the time, did you tell him?
Was David Brodrrick.
Okay.
That was my second husband. Yes.
And you told him, correct?
Oh yeah, and he was probably the hardest to tell, because
Yes.
I was in love with this man, and I was so afraid of what he might do. I could just see him flying off the handle and going down to Little Rock with a gun and killing Bill Clinton. I'm serious.
Yeah, I believe you.
I had to handle that with kid gloves.
Right. I mean, I imagine after you told him, his reaction was,
Oh, yeah.
anger, shock, and just...
Oh, it was.
And did he try to convince you to come forward, or...
No.
Right.
No, he knew that it was something that I couldn't do. In fact, I would never have come forward had I not been outed by the Paula Jones suit. In 97 or 98, it's on the internet, I can't remember exactly when it was, Paula Jones attorneys sent 2 private investigators to my home to speak with me. And I remember them coming to my front porch one day, and I walked out on the porch to talk to them. It's before I had my security gate. And I walked out on the porch to talk to them, and they finally say, "We're here for Paula Jones, and we understand that you were raped by Bill Clinton." And I tell them in so many words, that's horrible. I will not go there. You need to go back and tell your attorney I will not come forward. I'm living my life the way I want to live it now, and I do not want to be involved in her case against President Clinton. I don't want in it. Well, I had no idea they were reporting me. They never told me they were. Their name was Rick and Beverly Lambert. And do you know who they are? They're the parents of Miranda Lambert, the country singer.
Yes.
When she was a little girl. Yeah, they had a private investigation firm, and they were hired by Paula Jones' attorneys to investigate all of these allegations against Bill Clinton. Well, anyway, they left, and that transcript is on the internet where I plead with them please tell them not to involve me in this. And then about 2 weeks later, or it could have been a month later, I get a subpoena from the Paula Jones suit, and that's the time that I lied. I was angry. I could not believe that these people.
I'm sure you were scared.
It just frightened me to death. And I went to that deposition very angry, and I said, no, nothing happened. I thought to myself, you're not going to force me out. You're not going to put my life in danger. And so that's what I did. And you know, Trina, when I left that deposition with the Jones attorneys, I thought, well, that's the end of that. I won't have to go through this again. I'm through with it, turning my back on it. And then, of course, we all know what happened next.
Right.
I was deposed by Ken Starr. And that's when my son told me, he's an attorney, and he said, Mom, he said, Paula Jones' suit was civil. He said, this is very serious, and it's federal.
Right.
He said, you can get into a lot of trouble if you don't tell the truth. I had told him when he was a teenager, probably 17, 18 years old. And so he finally convinced me that I finally had to come clean. So that's the time that I came clean. And then people say, well, she lied, and then she told the truth, and she lied. I lied once, told the truth once.
But again, fear and,
oh, sure. You're talking about the Clintons.
Right.
Yeah. And he was president then.
I was going to ask you about that. Obviously, you have a lot of corroboration here, but how did you feel when he announced he was running for president, with what he did to you?
I'll tell you exactly. Back in 1991, the same nurses that had worked for me for years, Norma and her sister Jean, and I were in Little Rock at a nursing home seminar. And we'd been in the seminar for quite a while, and it was getting close to noon, and somebody comes and knocks on the door of the meeting room and said, Juanita Broddrick is wanted in the hall. And so I get up and go out there, and they follow behind me, thinking it's an emergency from home. And the man that called me out points down around the corner by the elevator, and he said, you're needed down there. So I go walk down there, and as I round the corner, there stands Bill Clinton.
Oh, goodness.
I was shocked. I was frightened.
Right.
I hadn't seen this man in 13 years, and he rushes over to me and tries to take my hand, and I back up. And he keeps saying all these things about, I'm so sorry for what I did, I'm a changed man, I'm a family man, and I would never do that again. And I just stood there, and I started crying, and I just almost shouted at him, you go to hell, and I walked off. I mean, I was crying by the time I got back to Norma and Jean, and they said, what did he want? And I told them, I said, he apologized to me. Well, lo and behold, 2 weeks later, he announced that he's running for president. I was just one of those little loose ends that he was trying to tie up.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me, but that's why I wanted to ask you, because that would be the logical thing. Keep it, he'd want to keep it hush-hush and quiet.
Yeah, but the most startling thing about that was it's as though he was telling me, I can reach out and touch you anytime I want. He knew where I was at that exact time in my life, and that frightened me even more.
Exactly. And then to top it off, Hillary Clinton went to you, and at that point said something that, by every account, would sound like a threat.
Oh yeah, she definitely did threaten me.
What did you say when she? Well, if you don't mind, tell our audience what she said to you, and then
Sure.
how was your reaction?
Okay, about 3 weeks. Okay, prior to the rape, I had worked in Bill Clinton's campaign for about a month. And during this time, I had helped arrange a fundraiser here in Van Buren with my friends, Buddy and Betty Criswell. They had the most gorgeous home on the mountain here. And so we asked Buddy and Betty if we could have a fundraiser there for Bill Clinton. Well, this is before the incident in Little Rock when he raped me. And so I had helped arrange this, set it up, and then I come back from Little Rock, and I'm devastated. Don't even remember anything about the fundraiser. I just barely get through each day and live day by day. And
Right.
then the day before the fundraiser, the evening before, Betty calls and said, "Do you have that list of donors?" And I thought, oh my God, the fundraiser. So I tell her that I'll run those up to her before the fundraiser starts. Fundraiser started at her home at 7 o'clock, and I went to her home about 6:15, 6:20, so I could give her the information, tell her what I had, and also give her a few checks that people had given me for the campaign to give to the Little Rock director when she got there. So I was doing that, tying all that up, and then before I can get out of her home, here comes Bill and Hillary Clinton. I can see them coming in through the back kitchen area. And just before Hillary comes over to me, I'm headed towards the front door. I mean, I want out of there. I want nothing to do with them. And my friend, Chuck Watts, who was a local pharmacist, rushes over to me. He was the one that had driven them from the airport to the Criswell home. And he rushes over to me and he said, gosh, he said, the topic of the conversation all the way from the airport, which is about a 30-minute drive, he said, was Bill and Hillary asking questions about you. And I just froze. I thought, my God.
I imagine.
So once again, he did not know what had happened to me, and he was excited that he could tell me that they were asking questions about me. That frightened me. He was excited, but I was scared.
Right.
So I again head to the front door. Before I can get there, Hillary catches me, comes over, and Trina, as she walked to me, I remember thinking, oh my God, here comes that poor woman married to that monster. And I had that in my mind, and I was courteous to her. And she said, I just want you to know how appreciative that Bill and I are for everything you do in this campaign. And I probably was about to faint at that moment. I nodded, or I could have said thank you, I don't remember. And I started for the door again. But as I turned from her, I felt somebody grab me. And I turn around, and it's Hillary. And she's got this very harsh look on her face, and she pulled me down to her, and she said, do you understand everything you do? And I knew at that moment, I jerked my arm from hers and I left, and I knew right at that moment that this woman more than likely knew what had happened to me and was threatening me.
Especially if she had a smile on her face.
Oh, she did in the beginning, and I did too.
Right,
I had no idea what this woman was. Now I do.
Right, because at the time, you felt sorry for her, which is, natural, because you seen a side of him that you thought maybe she had never seen.
Right. But after our encounter, I knew she knew.
I'm gonna, how did you, with the Paula Jones and Monica Lewinsky, Paula Jones sued Bill Clinton, I believe she won, but, how...
No, they settled.
They settled,
No,
okay.
Keep it from going to court. He paid her $850,000.
How does it make you feel that basically he got away with what he did to you?
Oh, it makes me angry. But in the beginning, years ago, I blamed myself until he apologized to me that day in 1991. I was still blaming myself, and that's the only good thing that came out of that day when they called me out of that meeting, was from then on, I put the blame right back where it should be. I felt shameful.
Right.
I felt ashamed, and I always felt like I should have done something. I should have never allowed him to come to my room. I should have known. I kept blaming myself, but no more after that.
Well, that's the most common reaction in every woman that has been raped. That is one of the first feelings that they have after the rape. And they feel ashamed. They blame themselves. They feel like the dirty ones. They don't, it's the man that did this horrendous act that should feel those things, but they don't. So I know exactly the what you're saying to me. I know exactly where you're getting at on that.
Right.
It's awful. Before I forget, before I go to my other questions, I got a question that I'm going to ask, that my husband asked me to ask you.
Sure.
As I told you, he's a huge supporter of yours, and he...
Oh, thank him for me.
I will. He's going to be listening to this right away, I just know. But he wanted me to ask you, under the circumstances, did what happened to you hold you back in certain things in life? Were there, like, maybe goals that you were never able to meet? Or, what happened afterwards that held you back in certain things? Okay.
One of the main things was my fear of men after that. I had a very loving husband. I married my second husband about 2 years after the rape. Well, about 2.5 years after. And had a very loving relationship. But during that time, for a year or longer after that, I remember I had such a fear of a salesman or any man coming to my office and coming in and being alone with him. So I set up a policy with my assistant that anytime a man came in, she was never to bring him to my office, always to come and tell me and bring me out in the public area by the counter, that I would never, ever be alone. That was a fear. And I also had severe claustrophobia after that and panic attacks. And those lasted probably onward 5 years, and gradually decreased after that. And
so
those are just some of, it was just, but as far as anything else, I think when people say, well, how did you manage to own a nursing home and run it and open up another one?
That was your coping.
I think hard work was my therapy.
So he took the most valuable thing from you, your peace of mind, your feeling of being safe. He stripped that from you. That's one of the most important things that a woman can have, is that that secure feeling. And
right, and when I helped others, it helped me.
Right. So that's, like I said, I as a reverend, I've counseled victims of rape, and I believed you before, but there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that this happened to you, because everything that you are talking about is very classic to the symptoms that women go through. It's a horrible thing. It's a very horrible thing.
Oh, it is. It is, and I have messages and emails every day from dozens of women, and that's another thing that's helping me through all that I'm going through again with the media and everything, is being able to help somebody else. It just goes right along with what helped me before.
Well, you are a very strong person. I'll tell you, you're very strong. To have been able to cope, by using your work, but even being strong, when that peace of mind is taken and that security is taken, you're vulnerable because, like I said, with the Kavanaugh testimony and hearings and things like that, it brings everything back like a floodgate.
Oh, it does.
I'm gonna ask you your opinion in a few minutes on some of those Kavanaugh things. How did you feel after you were forced to talk about this and it was out in the open? How did you feel after that?
Well, the first time I really talked about it was with the independent counsel, with the Ken Starr attorneys. And that was hard. That because I had lied about it in the Paula Jones case, and now my son is saying, Mom, you've got to tell the truth. We've got to get this out. And to sit down with a room full of people, which was Bill Clinton's attorneys and the independent counsel attorneys, and have to talk about something I'd never talked about in front of strangers before. That was so hard. But they were so sympathetic and they were so kind. And I get angry today when I hear people say, well, she was discredited by Ken Starr. That's the farthest thing from the truth. They were very sympathetic with my story, wanted to do something with it, but it had nothing to do with obstruction of justice. I had lied in the Paula Jones case myself. I mean, no one had forced me to do this. I was just afraid to come forward. No one had threatened me. No one had tried to buy me off. And that's the main thing that the independent counsel wanted to know is, why did you lie in the Paula Jones case? And so when they found out that there was no threats except for when Hillary threatened me within a month after the race, and within, and other strange occurrences, but no actual person coming up to me and threatening my life or threatening my family's life, there was nothing that I could do for the independent counsel on obstruction of justice. So that's why my case. But the reason I get so angry at the Dr. Ford thing is Chuck Schumer, Dianne Feinstein, and Dick Durbin were three of the Democrats who completely refused to read my record with the independent counsel. Even after Henry Hyde had asked them, please just read this very credible account because you might have a rapist in the White House. And he said, just read her account. We're not going to bring her in. And they all refused. Not one Democrat would read my record before they voted on impeachment.
I imagine that's, it makes you angry.
Yeah, they owe me an apology. Bringing forth this ridiculous claim of Dr. Ford after turning their backs on me 20 years ago. I mean,
have you went on like Twitter and called them out? I imagine you have,
yes.
and I imagine they don't respond.
Yes. Very definitely.
Well, I actually follow you on Twitter, and there was something that you put on there, and I'm going to ask you your response. I already seen part of that response because, like I said, I follow you on Twitter. And I know this question is going to anger you, no doubt. Recently, Hillary said that Trump's allegations of assault are differing than her husband Bill Clinton's allegations. And I I tweeted you a response under there. I'll tell you who I am after the recorder is off. But
Okay.
but
Yes, I went ballistic on that, Trina, when she said that, and she also completed that by saying these things were litigated in the 90s. They were never litigated. My case has never been investigated except by the FBI. Except by the NBC. The FBI never investigated me because they couldn't go any further after there was no obstruction of justice. And it just wasn't, I didn't seem to be that important to them back then. But for her to say these were settled, you saw what I tweeted.
I did. And
Yeah.
this is my response. I went to her Twitter page. Usually I follow both senators from both parties because I want to call the lies out of whoever's telling a lie. But Twitter has this thing with me that they go and unfollow me to all of the senators that I may call out. But my response to her was, you're right, it is different because your husband raped someone. Trump, the allegations against Trump, all of them are with adults that had consented.
Right. And many of those that said he sexually assaulted them have disappeared. Nothing
Right.
ever materialized from them.
And I want to ask you this, and I spoke to you a little bit on this, and so if there's something you cannot answer on that, I understand. When they called out an investigation on Kavanaugh, you actually said that you want an investigation into Bill Clinton.
Yes.
Has anyone responded to you? If you can't
No,
answer,
I have a petition. No, I have a petition now. I don't know if you saw that.
no.
I need 100,000 signatures, and I think I'm up to 30,000 now. And in order for the White House to look into this, it's a petition to the White House.
Well, when the recorder stops, I'll get that petition from you, and we'll put it along with the interview, and I will also put it on my Twitter and my
good.
Facebook.
Yeah, many people are doing that for me right now, so we have 3 weeks to get the other 70,000 signatures, and hopefully we'll get them.
Okay, great.
Well, let me
I will
tell you right now. Now, I do have another interview in 15 minutes.
Okay, then
What?
I'll get this finished up real quick. Then I think the only other thing I really wanted to ask you is since this is your book, I don't want to say or give anything away. So I'm having a little bit of problem here with my recorder.
Don't worry about it. My book was never meant to be a book.
Well,
When I came back from President Trump's inauguration, I just went to my computer and I thought, my life is going to be in the history books. And I'd like to sit down and write it in my own words. And I wanted to do this for my son and my grandson. And so I just wrote for about 2 months, just everything I could think of, shed a lot of tears, and closed it and left it on my computer. And about a month it's more like 6 months later, I had this investigative journalist from Jacksonville, Florida, Nick Lully, call me and want to do a serialized podcast of my life. And I said, I've got an outline we could use to do that. And so I sent him what I had. He said, he called me the next day and he said, oh no, he said, we need to do a book.
Oh.
So he actually talked me into doing the book and did the forward for it and did all of the PDFs for the Amazon.
Well, everyone that's out there, I've read, I haven't finished a book, but everything that I've read, if you are someone who does not believe that this happened, this book would change your mind. I would say to get it. It's a very intense book. Very intense.
Thank you, Trina. I really appreciate that. And I had people, publishing companies, write me and call me and say, we'd like to do a book with you. And I said, okay, I have one. And I sent them my book, and they said, oh no, we only want to know about the time from Clinton and the rape and your whatever happened with Clinton. I said, no, I won't do that. I'm more than that. I had a very interesting life. I was a very successful young nurse and business entrepreneur, and my life is more than the 30-minute rape by Bill Clinton. So that's why I self-published.
Exactly. You don't let something like that define you. That's why I said you're a strong woman. Since you got an interview in a couple minutes, I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and I'll make them small ones. That's what I was looking for, was the small ones.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it for the sake of the political environment and the attacks on Kavanaugh. Yes or no? Do you remember who, what, when, and where that your attack happened?
Oh, yes, exactly. Now, I did not remember the day. And when I told NBC Dateline that the close, I said I knew it was spring. It had to be sometime in March or April. I knew it wasn't May.
Well, not many.
But I said it had to, because of the clothes that I wore.
Right, and not many.
I had to throw away when I got home.
Right, and not many women remember that, like it was March 31st, whatever. People don't remember, that. But I was asking that because of the whole political thing about Kavanaugh and the questioning, the answers that Professor Ford gave, not knowing.
They were ridiculous. They were just absurd. You remember more than that. You do. And for people to say, well, memories are repressed, this woman was a professional. She should have remembered more than she did if it actually occurred.
Let me ask you, I know I remember everything. Matter of fact, I've got siblings that don't know any of what I told you. Just my mom knew. So I got brothers that didn't know. My father won't know. They won't know unless they listen to this interview. So, like I said, you were an inspiration to me.
Thank you, Trina.
Through your unfortunate attack, you've been an inspiration to a lot of people. Whenever you say anything about Bill Clinton, like the FBI thing, do you get attacked by Democrats?
Well, I haven't been because I have so many followers on Twitter. There's no way I can get to all of them. Now, today I did have a direct message on Twitter, and it was horrible. I mean, they call me every name in the book, and they call me this fat old lady that no one would ever want to touch. And you get hardened to those things.
Yeah, you do.
Those are just idiots, trying to speak out and be relevant, and they're not relevant.
No, they're not. But, about a week ago, someone attacked you, and this was when you were at the Kavanaugh hearings, and they said something along the lines, why can't you be sympathetic? And I gave I told pretty much what I told you about, real victims. And I won't go into detail yet, but I'll tell you who I am, before we hang up, but after the recorder, because you know why.
Okay.
What do you, with this whole Kavanaugh thing, what would you say to the people that are attacking him and, just running with these allegations rather than based off of personal experience?
You have to realize that these people are not, they are being paid, many of them, to say what they do, and to do what they say and to carry those signs. When I was outside the hearing in Washington, D.C., when the Kavanaugh hearing was going on, most of these people standing around screaming had no idea what they were even screaming about.
And have no idea.
Brought in a busload. And they were there for the free food and the paycheck. And that was it. Now, these Hollywood liberals and these other big-name Democrats are not doing this against Kavanaugh. They are doing this against President Trump.
Exactly.
It doesn't relate to Kavanaugh. They want you to think that it does. This relates directly to their disgruntledness at losing the election.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on that because unfortunately, that's what it appears to be. And I do believe that the news has come out and said that there was a direct link to George Soros. So that he was the one paying.
That. Yeah.
Now, do you think
everything?
Exactly. Your opinion. Do you think that the Republicans were courteous to Professor Ford and respectful to her? But
absolutely.
Do you think the Democrats gave the same?
I think they bent over backwards, and if they'd gone any further backwards, the Republicans and the Conservatives would have been very upset with them. They even offered to do this in private and fly to where she was.
Yeah, and she didn't know. And she didn't know that. Was that same respect and courtesy given to Kavanaugh from the Democrats, in your opinion?
Oh, no. They attacked him from day one. It's a shame what they did to that man. But, you know, this is a strong man. He has a strong wife and strong daughters, and they're going to get through this just fine. And one of these days, history's going to look back on the Democrats very negatively for what they have done the last month.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question because this relates to what the Democrats are accusing as to be bad temperament with Kavanaugh. I want to ask you, those that attack you and say the things they do and blame you, would you say your temperament has been or would be the same that Kavanaugh's reaction?
I think he was calm compared to what most men would have been. I mean, it was absolutely an insult to drag that man through the gutter like the Democrats did. It was disrespectful, and it was egregious.
Yes. Well, Mrs. Brodrick, I'm going to let you say whatever you want to say to close this interview out. If you want to talk about your book, if you want to talk about something, whatever you want, the floor is yours.
Sure, I've got about a minute.
Okay.
I just think it's so important if you have anyone out there listening that might in the future become a rape victim, I hope not, or have suffered from rape, to be very aware of your surroundings. The most important thing that they can think about is being safe. You know, once the rape occurs, are you safe? Are you in a safe area? And the next thing is to try to remember and write down everything that you can think of about the assault and what happened. Anything that you can remember, because your memory loses, you know, year after year. You'll forget these things.
Right.
And so I think, and then to me, the most important thing is to tell someone you trust. That to me is the most important thing.
That's some very great advice. And her book, by the way, is I don't have it in front of me, but it's titled
it should better put some eyes on that.
I couldn't remember if it said you should or you better. But don't hang up just yet.
Okay.
To all of the audience out there, we're going to conclude this interview, and we would like to have Mrs. Brodrick back again. And also, anytime that you want to add something, please, by all means,